sees the memes of production, and the like and subscribe button. One day I overheard my boss saying, just put it in ChatGPT. The workers who lost their jobs to AI. I'm not reading this whole goddamn thing. This sucks, man. Summarize this for me, but wokely. Yeah. If you lose your job to AI, you were not doing much because AI does not exist in a I don't think that's necessarily true. It's just that at the end of the day, we don't actually need as many workers as we have, is the issue. Like, we've been coasting by on the assumption that despite automation making things by and large much easier to do and produce, you can actually just have constant, permanent, more or less 100% employment because new jobs will always open up. And the fact of the matter is, that's just not true, right? A lot of people have do-nothing jobs. And a lot of the like metrics we use for economic health are kind of self-sustaining. People will optimize for them even if it's not in their own best interest. Yeah, the managers have those jobs. Well, yeah, exactly. In a lot of cases, that is true. Obviously, this was always going to happen. The moment they can automate a process and save money on it, it doesn't matter what the quality of the automation is. Being an artist isn't really a bullshit job, I don't think. No, but what if you're an artist or a voice actor or whatever working on a generic slop Netflix original show? What if the show itself is slop? Now, your talent, your craft, isn't a waste at all, but it's being used in service of waste. Like, the world is not being made better. That show is being created because people put money into it being created. Because people were, you know, everyone's fighting over this, like, a slimmer and slimmer margin of attention that they can get, like, next to all the other distractions in people's lives. It's not really that workable. Probably not even the biggest AI problem in the next years. I don't believe in this AI 2027 thing. People keep predicting this. I don't believe this is true. People have been predicting this for ages. We don't even have a way of knowing whether or not a machine is conscious. We don't even know what consciousness is. We have no definition for consciousness, not a scientifically testable one at the very least. It's very possible that even if we do somehow create artificial life, we won't even know we have it. It'll just be indistinguishable from an existing chatbot, maybe a little more sophisticated. It's probably just a complexity threshold. I don't even think it's a complexity threshold, man. It's also very possible that it's just not possible to create life with machines. Like, our brains, meat brains, and the brains of AI work differently. It's possible that this might have some kind of emergent characteristic that you could never replicate with machines. Not enough people understand that companies don't really give a crap about quality. I think more and more people understand that these days. There is some evidence that our consciousness is actually a quantum effect. I don't know. I don't know. People, you know, we think this, we think that. Look, no one even knows right now, okay? So I'm not worried about definitions with regard to artificial intelligence, genuine artificial intelligence, if we can't even figure out how to define it in ourselves. This is just like, well, here's a theoretical time map. Like, look, see, I don't believe in this anyway. 5,000 unreliable agent copies thinking at 10 times human speed. There's no such thing as thinking as 10 times human speed. That's not the way machines think and we think aren't the same. For one, we think, they don't. They process. For two, like, you can't, it doesn't just come down to bits. Like, this isn't bit logic, you know? Things are encoded, the neurons or whatever. Like, if you want to talk about, like, well, can machines think faster than humans? What about in arithmetic? Because in arithmetic, machines have been thinking faster than humans for a very, very, very long time. It's very easy to get that done in bit logic, you know? But there are kinds of thinking that humans can do that a machine could never. For example, a human could have an opinion on beauty, but machines can only replicate our opinions on beauty. If you ask ChatGPT or whatever whether or not an image is beautiful, what it does is it pulls from this enormous archive of information on our opinions, and it synthesizes one based on images similar to the one you presented and how people tend to react to images like that, but it can't form that connection itself. It literally doesn't have the ability. That's not a thing it can do. Our understanding of beauty is derived from, if you will, a kind of like coding in the way our brains are structured that exists independent of a, like, you know, a training model. Like, if you have no prior training for an AI, it can't do anything, right? It needs to copy us to have those feelings, to arrive at those conclusions. Vaush is coping, lol. I noticed there's a very strong correlation between people who get mad at my AI opinions and people who seem themselves to be subliterate. Maybe your mind can be easily simulated by a machine, but I'm afraid that mine cannot. Like, it seems like a self-report to me, personally. Isn't the scientific definition of beauty in people symmetry? No, symmetry is a component of it, but it's also highly subjective. There is no scientific definition of beauty. We don't even really have a subjective definition of beauty, and yet, strangely, we all seem to know what it means on an intuitive level. Like, we have a common understanding of what beauty means, even if we have different definitions of it. And it's something that we tend to form opinions on and have perceptions on it before we linguistically understand what the category of the word beauty refers to. It's very complicated. I'm not saying that, you know, it's an impossible bridge to cross, but we still just don't know what consciousness is, you know? We don't really know what will is or anything like that, you know? We understand like characteristics of the brain. We can see what lights up when you make decisions, but in terms of why it worked out that way or in what way exactly, like how many thinking parts do you have to assemble before something has feelings? Not before it expresses feelings. ChatGPT can express feelings. Are you happy? Yes, I am. Okay, great, fantastic. But you can feel it without expressing it. And it lights up in your brain, sure. And we know happiness is correlated to chemical influences in your brain too. Like, that science has been worked out. We know things like serotonin and dopamine have effects on our feelings. So our feelings are the reaction, the product of chemical processes, right? But why then can't we mix a bundle of chemicals in a vat and then create an experience in that vat of happiness? Could we dump those chemicals on a machine? Probably not, would be my guess. We don't really understand how it all works together, is what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's complicated. It's not like I got an answer to this shit. But it does bother me when people engage in these conversations, you know? It does bother me when people are like, oh yeah, well at this point, 22,000 reliable agent copies will think at 13 times human speed. What does that mean? People get, oh, see, look, it's exponential. Whoa, it's exponential. Look, see? Because as we know, models predicting exponential growth in computer processing will always follow that model. And there will be no point at which there's an end to the, you know, the growth. Superhuman AI researchers. It just doesn't land with me, you know? Choose your ending? Why are people so upset about this? It's like a creative writing project. But people have been, this isn't the first time someone linked it. People in chat were like, have you seen that 2027 AI thing? You know, you should talk with some of the authors. They're really receptive to convo. Wow, people who did a creative writing project are open to talking about it with interested media figures. I'll keep that in mind. We don't know 100% of the physical processes that make up consciousness, but we have a pretty good rough idea of what it is fundamentally. We have a theory. It's like what? Consciousness is like an emergent property of the decision-making apparatuses that a being uses to judge its environment, react to stimuli, and continue to get the resources that it needs to reproduce. It's like an evolutionary byproduct where you need consciousness in order to make the decisions to optimize, like you finding the fruit, you know, or someone or whatever. Like, you need to be able to make decisions. And in order for you to make decisions, you need to be able to evaluate the environment, but the evaluation has to be coded through a chemical system that allows you to like respond to the good and the bad, right? So it's not enough to just know that you need to reproduce. It helps to make feel good and necessary. It's not enough to know you need food. It's good to make the food taste good. So the fact that we have senses plays into our ability to make these judgments and like da-da-da. I understand that. And that seems like a likely explanation in the broad strokes. But there's a difference between understanding the principle of why we are like that and actually understanding how it works, right? Because you could arrive at the same... You could do the same kind of analysis on like the black box of an AI's decision making. You could be like, well, you know, it's these choice analyses or whatever. And like, that doesn't tell you how the black box works. That just tells you like from a distance how you think it came to be the way that it is. You need to map the brain, I guess. We have mapped the brain. We've mapped the brain in incredible detail. Unfortunately, the nature of consciousness is pretty elusive. And I think that's fine, to be honest. I guess I feel like... you know, I guess that's just a mystery of the universe right now. I mean, I don't really mind if I never know the answer. I'm curious. I don't really mind the idea of there being a bit of an elusive mystery to the nature of living things and why we are the way we are. I certainly prefer it to the hideous glee with which tech bros seem interested in like replacing all human function with unthinking, unfeeling AI black boxes that do nothing but crudely imitate the, you know, petabytes of information they've been trained on. Yeah, like I guess like I'm not a big guy on mysticism, but I think it's okay to hold consciousness with a little bit of reverence. Yeah, you get me. Do you think animals are conscious? Sure. Can't you tell? Playing with a dog or a cat or whatever? Yeah, for sure. There's clearly some kind of like scale. I mean, if you've played with like a reptile, they've got rocks for brains. They're still making decisions, but yeah, for sure. We've probably got a much more developed like consciousness. I mean, we definitely do. It's not a probably. Um, what about plants? No, plants don't. Because so that's the weird line, right? Because we have feelings, like cats and dogs have feelings, whatever. Plants react to stimuli because they're designed to produce internal, like much like us, right? They'll produce chemicals, they'll have physiological reactions to some things, like sunflowers follow the sun, or like plants will grow or wilt or whatever. So plants aren't alive? No, of course plants are alive, but I don't think they feel things. I think that they have biological responses that allow them to respond to their environment. You know, like a Venus flytrap has the reflex at the base of its little mouth thing where it closes around a bug or whatever. But I don't think they necessarily feel like they don't, you know, they have like I guess it depends on what you mean by feeling. Coral reefs, right? Well, aren't coral reefs plants? Isn't coral a plant? Am I wrong? It's not a rock. Coral are animal? It's an animal. Interesting. Okay. I guess I don't know much about that. Fungi have a network thing or something? Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a plant. Okay, I know fungi aren't technically part of the like plant, animal, whatever, but you know what I mean. Don't think they got brains. Jellyfish? Are you just probing me, or do you have anything interesting to add? You're just gonna ask me about every like kind of living thing on Earth? Yes? Okay. I feel like for me, in order to consider something like conscious, I think it has to be possible to train it in some way. You can even train a fly. Not just like in terms of, well, the next generation will be a little bit better at searching for things colored blue or whatever, but you can like, even with the simplest of creatures, I think you can, they're like susceptible to extremely minute kinds of training, you know? Whereas plants, I think that plants can be rebuilt in the sense that you can splice and alter them to behave differently, but over the course of a plant's lifetime, I don't think there's anything you can do to change the coding of the responses that it has to their environment. Yeah, they don't make decisions is the thing. You can't teach a plant to make a different set of decisions, even if you incentivize those things. The if-and statements that are coded into a plant are coded in. I think that's how it works, right? Like the if this, do that, if this, do that set of statements or whatever, like that's just locked the in. Whereas for us, of course, we can change that all around. You know, we have the ability to... That's my thought. I agree with Vaush, and not gonna lie, he's not doing a good job explaining it. Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? Are you a plant? Can you learn from your environment? Why do you hate me? We're talking about like an esoteric philosophical subject and not doing a good job explaining